Hi, this is the Nubian Review where we talk about books and all bookish content. So, every month I have a list of books that I would like to recommend for homeschoolers. So, we're going to start off Black History Month with books I I feel that every homeschooler will benefit from if they had these books in their collections. Now, the books are specifically for the adult. However, these lessons they can transcend with the community and with your students. These books have allowed me to look at various issues within our educational system and the deficiency of how the cultural learning is not is not balanced out. Now, every February, well, we used to, I don't know, we would have here in the U.S. Black History Month, where you have some schools they would do like, you know, maybe a Black History Day, an assembly, to highlight black leadership, mostly Martin Luther King, and they would name some other people. But at the same time, the ongoing of learning should always come through reading, objective reading, and having these conversations. So for February, I want to introduce you to some books that I feel, like I said, will be helpful for anybody who is a parent or a homeschool educator or an educator, in the school to understand the dynamics of racial disparities, uplifting, and black improvement. The first book I want to share with you guys is a book that was referred to me over 20 years ago. And I read the book originally. I borrowed it from the library, and now I actually went and got my own copy because I wanted to highlight it. Just a minute, you guys. And so, in order for me to write in the book, I had to get my own copy. But also, this is one of those books that I feel like every parent of African descent who are raising boys should have in their collection, and that is Kill Them Before They Grow: Misdiagnosis of African American Boys in American Classrooms by Michael Porter. This is a classic for me for those reasons. Being a mother of two sons, as I read this book, I see the microaggressions that we may look over, and this is a very informative. Reaffirm it. It affirmed, not anything new. It affirmed everything that I believe. So, this book goes into how African American boys are definitely treated in the classroom, and they are misdiagnosed with all of these other learning disabilities because they are, in most cases, accelerated or tactile learners. And so, yes, there's always a mixed diagnosis. So, yeah, I encourage parents to get this one. The next one I would say on my list, there's a stack. It's a set of 4. This entire series is one for the books. I actually just finished rereading this, and I will be doing a live discussion on this in January. It is the Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys series. This is an entire series, 1 through 4. Have 4 volumes of this. Very quick, short books that you can read for yourself, and just be insightful and be informed of the things that black boys are dealing with globally and here in the United States. So I thought this is a great, I would say, out of all of my collection of books, it's these smaller books that's just highlighting things that I deal with in my life on a regular basis, or conversations that we as a community need to have. It's highlighted at its best um, in his best content. Juwanza Kunjufu, he was a great author. He has other books in his catalog that I would love to get, but they're pretty, quick reads. But heavy reads, you guys. Um, I would definitely suggest, if you are planning on reading this, read it from volume 1 through 4, because it's definitely a progression. Not that you have to, but reading it from volume 1 to volume 4, you would definitely see the progression and the reiteration of subject matters that he spoke about in each volume. The next one I would like to share is The Education of the Negro, an essential preface to understanding the miseducation of the Negro. This right here was, I would say, one of my most, not challenging reads, but a read that I would say next time I would read it, I would do it in community, because you like to kick ideas back and forth. But this goes into basically the education of how our history is not properly told through the educational system, and we already know that, right? And so he give not only a history, but give ideas and suggestions to move forward. Author by this is a classic, so I think a lot of people know who wrote this, but if not, Carter G. Woodson. It's a great one. This one is this is definitely a classic. Why are all the kids sitting together in the cafeteria, and other conversations about race? And this also has a workbook, you guys. I have the workbook. If you are interested, I can probably just like post it if you're interested in having a group discussion about this. And it goes into the dynamics how within the school, even though in diverse populated schools, there is a there is a self-segregation that happens, that the comfort or the ease or the understanding of being with a group of people who understand you. And sometimes, like in Board versus Brown versus Board, Topeka, the goal was to desegregate and have everyone, have the same learning opportunities. However, the end segregation never stopped. And this book explicitly talks about the psychological and the mental factors of that. And I think this is a great read for any parent of children, not just African American children, of children should understand. The next one I would like to give you is a bit of a, I would say, treasure for you to read and to implement these lessons in your home curriculum. And by the way, if you are not a homeschooler, I hope, and I know a lot of parents do, have extra education and learning time at home or within the community, because it is desperately needed, you guys. So don't just take your child going to school should be the end all be all. Don't take them getting tutoring from other people. You as a parent, we have to be hands-on in our community with our children, and we need to teach them the things that they need to know to emotionally and mentally prepare for the rest of the world. Not just physically, not just athletics, right? But the other things that they need to learn about and have affirmed and reaffirmed during their childhood and going into adulthood. I think it's important. But let's get back to this. American Slavery, American Freedom, The Ordeal of Colonial Virginia. This was not one of those books that I immediately wanted to add to this, but I think this is a great precursor for anybody in the course of teaching social studies or understanding what is not being taught in our schools here in America, and for you to understand the gist of American slavery. Now, it doesn't talk about the origins of American slavery. However, it doesn't do a good job at that. This is not that book, but it does talk about how the onset, how slavery affected, the building of the Constitution. And so this is a good book, for you to just have to help you build curriculum and understand your aim. Oh, you know what? I didn't give you the name of the last book. Why are all kids sitting in the cafeteria? Why are all the black kids sitting together in the back cafeteria? I'm sorry. Beverly Daniel Tatum, PhD. And like I said, this right here is an actual curriculum. I don't know if it's online, but I did buy the booklet for it. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I would love to do a discussion on that during Educators Week, which I think is in April. But yeah, if you see that video before then, let me know, because I'll be open to that. And the next one is Edmund S. Morgan, the author, if you're interested in looking into this. Every book that I've discussed so far, you may be able to find it in your local library. All right. So the next one is a classic piece. Well, it's not a classic piece. I just like mentioning this book time and time and time again on this channel. And I think this will be a staple reminder on my channel of this particular book, because this book not only covers, it's not only told in a language where adults can understand, right? But it is also told in a language where your kindergartner, your middle schooler, and then your young adult all have a well-written book for them to understand the origins of racism and racist ideas. Stamped from the beginning. Embre X Kende, probably hands down one of my favorite authors, because this author, he takes the time out to not only write the books so we as adults can understand and delve into those issues, he simplifies it for every language. And not only has he done it for Stamped, he has done this for other books as well. I have another one of his books, Malcolm X. Is called, it's a biography based on Malcolm X, and it's for children. So he has a way of simplifying a language that people may see as threatening or intimidating, and just simplify it for the reader. This book was one of our reading books for our curriculum during homeschool, and I always refer back to this book because I think him, and then I think Stamp was written by Jason Reynolds, who is also a prolific author. They've done a great job at simplifying the language for defining how the origins of racist ideas. Embre X Kende. That should be, whether you're an educator or have children or not, that should be in everybody's collection. The next one is Teachers on Teaching. Now, and this is by Michelle Foster. Black Teachers on Teaching. This tells various essays on black teachers and their methods and their obstacles of teaching in black children in school. And it's one of those books where you can, like, after the introduction, I set this down for a while, but then I will go back and I will read it per essay. It wasn't a straight read through for me. It may be for you, but it tells the most humbling stories. And reading this book, I can see the challenges and the obstacles black educators do deal with on a day-to-day or year-to-year or basis and teaching highly populated minority school, or just teaching in general. So yeah, this is a great book to have in your library. The next one, The Black Intellectual Tradition. I love this book. It may not seem like it is something that a homeschooler or an educator will be interested in, but it's definitely something that it brings the insight of Black intellectualism. And actually, I am still reading this book, and this was not part of my first round of books. I am re-recording this um, because the first time I recorded, for some reason, the camera stopped and I didn't know. So, like, I'm looking at the clock now, making sure it's not stopping. The Black Intellectual Tradition, African American, thought in the 20th century, and this so far is turning out to be pretty good. Yeah. I would like to tell you more about this when I read it, but for so far, I think that anybody who's curious about Black intellectualism, because it is a thing, right? We the one who we've created Black intellectualism. So it is interesting to read some of these essays and suggestions on books to read about slavery, even African singing. It just, the ideologies, the ideas, it just covers a spectrum of the area of Black intellectualism that we are not seeing on a daily basis via media, because uh, it is portrayed, Blackness is portrayed as something dangerous, as something mediocre. So we have to be careful of that. But I do encourage those who are curious to pick up this book. Authors Derek P. Aldridge, Cornelius A. Bayham, and James B. Stewart. It's edited by them. So good book. The next one, My Black Stars from Lucy to Obama by Lillian Thurman. This is something that I feel most teachers who are teaching Black children or cultural studies should have in a pocket. And it's not for the kids to read unless they're in high school, but it's definitely for your adult to read too, so they can get deeper into the text and understanding, their opinions and their thoughts when they're talking about these great leaders. Now, it says from Lucy, and so I know the title may offend some, but the oldest bone that has ever been discovered on planet Earth was the bone of a Black woman. That's why it says Lucy. And so she was called Lucy. And it has been undisputed to this date that Black and Africans are the oldest DNA that's walking this earth. Undisputable. And so I encourage educators, especially if you're an educator of social studies, to read this book. It gives you a sense of cultural understanding in history when we are putting that into a simpler text for children. I love this book. This is definitely worth a reread. So, yes. Last but not least, this book has been so controversial, and I wanted to make this the last book because it's been controversial. But this is a book that you will probably see time and time again on this channel, because I believe that Black lives do matter. I believe diversity, equity, and inclusion, civil rights 2.0, outside of Jim Crow, is always important to understand, and that is the 1619 Project, created by Nicole Hannah-Jones. This is a collection of essays telling the history of slavery in chronological order, and I don't know why this was so controversial. Like, I really don't. History should not be controversial. It's factual. It should be factual. It should be subjected to criticism. However, it should not be on the banned book list. So, I encourage all educators, and this is another book that is told in various levels of understanding. They do have one for teens, they do have one for children. I do have the one for children, it's a picture book, but I do also have the ones that is like a simpler language for younger adults. And so I do encourage any educator, any homeschooler, any parent of black and brown children, or any children, and even for yourself, to read this book. And so these are my recommendations for educators for Black History Month. Stay tuned for March, because we have a beautiful lineup for Women's Month. And yeah, we will go from there. And if you have any questions or any suggestions or any other books that you feel that should be on this list, always feel free to leave something in the comments. So until then, I will see you later. Bye bye.